Hello and welcome back to Absurd Land. Step into the shadows of history as these old photos reveal their chilling and bizarre secrets. From haunting mysteries to twisted tales, there's more than meets the eye. Let's get started. This shot shows more than 7,000 bags of gold and silver that had been looted by the Germans during the war. It was stored here, inside the Merkur salt mine in Germany, and discovered on April 8, 1945. Included in this discovery was 8,198 bars of gold bullion and 2.76 billion Reichsmarks. Photo of Dina Sanichar, a feral boy discovered in a wolf's cave in India, 1867. Found by hunters moving with a wolf pack, he behaved like an animal, walking on all fours and refusing cooked food. Taken to an orphanage, he never adapted to human life, continuing to eat raw meat and rarely standing upright. Strangely, he only picked up one human habit: smoking. His story is thought to have inspired the character of Mowgli in the Jungle Book. 1860s. Yes, that's exactly what he's selling. The merkin, a pubic hair wig, became popular among prostitutes and actresses to cover up hair loss or meet societal expectations. Made from animal hair, these wigs served both aesthetic and practical purposes, like concealing lice-induced hair loss. Terrible tests of Unit 731. The victim, infected with various pathogens by Unit 731 of the Japanese Imperial Army, was studied alive to observe the effects of disease, often without anesthesia. The experiments aimed to develop biological weapons, and most of the victims were Chinese civilians. This historical event sheds light on the dark world of secret biological warfare experiments. The cell you see is where the accused of the witch trials in Salem, Massachusetts, were imprisoned. It was in cells like this that accused witches spent the last moments of their lives before execution. Between 1692 and 1693, more than 200 people were accused in Salem court, including 19 sentenced to death for the false crime of witchcraft. In Persia, foot whipping, or falaka, was a traditional punishment for minor offenses. The condemned person's feet were tied, and painful blows were delivered to the soles. The punishment was excruciating, but typically didn't cause permanent injury. A black man is punished for a crime by being tied to a whipping post and publicly flogged in Delaware, US in 1900. Such punishment was only for black people. The term cracker was given to white people, who were quick to whip their slaves because the whip made a cracking sound when hitting flesh. Orrin Van Loon, a Detroit minister, was abducted by the Ku Klux Klan in 1924 because of his opposition to their activities. They marked him with the letters KKK burned into his skin as a form of humiliation. He was held for 11 days before being released. Lice cages on the researcher's legs. Professor Rudolf Weigel infected people's blood with lice, as the lice transmitted the typhus pathogens. Using this method, he successfully developed a vaccine for typhus, marking a significant advancement in the fight against the disease. In 1965, neo-fascists vandalized the Jewish cemetery in Bamberg, Germany. The act shocked the local community and highlighted the rising far-right extremism in post-war Germany. A group of Imperial Japanese Army soldiers stand trial for massacring an entire village. The victims were taken in groups of 5 to 10 to nearby wells, blindfolded and bayoneted. Their bodies were dumped in the wells, and upwards of 1,000 people were murdered. Burma, 1946. In 1911, the Camorra trial in Viterbo saw 47 Neapolitan Mafia members sentenced to a total of 354 years after a 17-month process. It marked a pivotal moment in Italy's fight against organized crime. A convicted murderer awaits execution in the electric chair in the US in 1925. Introduced in 1890 as a more humane alternative to hanging, The electric chair was widely used until lethal injection became prevalent in the late 20th century. Harvey Geltman took this photo of 19-year-old Judy Dahl before luring her to the Mojave Desert, where he ultimately took her life. Active in the 1950s, Geltman preyed on young women, often posing as a fashion photographer. He convinced new Hollywood actresses to pose for him, claiming to add their photos to his collection, unaware of the tragic fate awaiting them. In 1912, Jim Thorpe, an American Indian, had his running shoes stolen on the morning of his Olympic track and field events. He found this mismatched pair of shoes in the garbage and ran in them to win 2 Olympic gold medals that day. This photo shows a woman about to take a pill for a drug ad in the US in 1942. During this time, pharmaceutical companies often used models to promote drugs, sometimes without highlighting potential risks. Many drugs were marketed before their long-term effects were fully understood, reflecting a time before strict advertising regulations were in place. In this 1937 photo, a woman in Budapest practices smiling at the Smile Club, which helped those struggling with depression and suicidal thoughts. The club used simple exercises, like forced smiles, to offer psychological support during a time when mental health was less understood. In 1900, a river pirate in China awaited justice for his crimes, which included multiple tragic incidents. The method of execution was a unique structure of wooden beams or stones, designed to gradually limit the individual's ability to stand, reflecting the era's strict and symbolic approach to punishment. Prison labor in Pitt County, North Carolina, 1910. Prisoners were transported in caged wagons to roadwork projects. Notable figures in the scene include the cook, musician, armed deputy, and bloodhounds. School children salute the flag in the US in 1915. This was known as the Bellamy Salute and was the same as the Nazi salute well before the Nazis existed. Once Germany became an enemy of the US, the Pledge of Allegiance salute was formally changed. The Great Blizzard of 1888 struck New York City and the Northeast, burying the area in snow up to 50 inches, with drifts reaching 50 feet. It halted transportation, left hundreds dead, and led to the creation of NYC's subway system to avoid future surface-level disruptions. Armed Klansmen sailing in Galveston Bay. Their goal was to intimidate the new Vietnamese fishermen who were fleeing communist Vietnam and settling in the area. 1979. In 1930, during the Prohibition era, bootleggers crossed the frozen Detroit River from Canada to smuggle alcohol into the United States. The drivers kept their car doors always open, ready to jump out in case the ice cracked beneath them. This daring tactic was part of their secretive and dangerous operations, as they used the frozen river as a covert route to evade law enforcement and customs officers. Photographers gather at Berlin's Glienicke Bridge to capture a prisoner exchange. During the Cold War, this bridge was often used by the Americans and Soviets for exchanging spies or political prisoners. Among those who crossed here was Gary Powers, the U-2 spy plane pilot shot down over the Soviet Union. A 1935 photograph depicts a key moment in China's fight against opium addiction. As part of a nationwide campaign, severe penalties, including capital punishment, were enforced on traffickers. With 263 such cases in 1934, the government aimed to eliminate opium's social impact and end its use by 1940. In 1917, Tsar Nicholas II's daughters had their heads shaved as a precaution during a smallpox outbreak at the Alexander Palace. Their lives came to a tragic end in 1918 amidst the upheaval of the Russian Revolution, as the royal family was seen as a symbol of the old regime. At the time, their hair had only grown back to about 12 to 14 centimeters, contrasting the long-haired depictions often seen in films and media. Japanese-American Tomoya Kawakita stands in jail. He had defected to Japan during the war and brutalized American prisoners of war in prison camps. Kawakita was arrested after being recognized by a former prisoner of war. He is currently one of the last Americans to be convicted of treason. California, 1947. In 1930, snakeskins were dried in a London dock warehouse, reflecting the city's involvement in the exotic goods trade. The docks were key to processing rare materials like animal skins, which were used in fashion and leather industries. In 1930, the Indiana Bell Building was rotated 90 degrees. Over a month, the 22 million pound structure was moved at a rate of 15 inches per hour, all while 600 employees still worked there. There was no interruption to gas, heat, electricity, water, sewage, or the telephone service they provided. No one inside felt it move. In 1942, peep show machines at American fairs offered short films, often humorous or slightly daring. During wartime, they became less popular but still provided a nostalgic form of entertainment. 1927, a new invention, the electric blanket. It keeps the body at 36 degrees Celsius without heavy blankets. Originally for hospital use, it became safer over the years, gaining popularity by the 1950s as a home heating solution. Inventor Milton Fairchild demonstrates it from his bed. An ostrich carriage being stopped by the police for crossing the speed limit, Los Angeles, 1930s. In 1930, during Richard E. Byrd's Antarctic expedition, George Black, the supply officer, is seen playing with puppies born from the 94 sled dogs that accompanied the journey, using a toy sled for entertainment.
Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.